Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, I have here Sunan Abu Dawud Volume 2, and I want to discuss a hadith that really makes a lot of sisters upset. And I've talked about it in the past, but upon further speculation, I've thought of it even in a new way that I want to share with you. Okay, so let's refresh our minds. So, Sunan Abu Dawud Volume 2, okay, Hadith number 2141, page 550. Abu Huraira narrated that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "If a man calls his wife to bed and she refuses, and he spends the night angry at her, the angels curse her until the next morning." Sahih. Okay, so I want you to think about something that I think some sisters haven't really realized, which is you should be thankful that your husband wants you. You should be thankful that he still finds you desirable. Now, for women who haven't had children yet and you're young, you may be thinking to yourself, it's not important to really fulfill your husband's needs. But I want you to think about it in a new way. Imagine you have your baby and you've gained weight. Your mental health isn't doing too good. You're suffering with postpartum depression, and your husband tells you, "I'm not attracted to you anymore." And he starts to refuse you more and more. I want you to think about how devastated you would be. Now, a lot of women think they wouldn't be devastated. They might think, "Oh, well, I'll just get a toy. I'll cheat. I'll do something else. I'll just cut him off in my heart and I won't care." But I want you to think of it in a healthy way, which is that you love this person, okay? And that it deeply hurts you, but you're doing the best you can to raise your children, but that he's bluntly told you he doesn't really care anymore if you are upset that he doesn't initiate or something like that. And I want you to think about the true devastation. And then I want you to think about how your body is only going to be attractive for a small window of time. It's very easy to look at Brazilian butt lifts and Botox and fillers and AI and to think that these women you see on Instagram are real, okay? You don't really see them what they look like when they come out of the shower, what they look like before all that plastic surgery, okay? And then you also have to think about how many hours and how many nannies and how much they delegate to others to raise their kids. And how your self-esteem goes through ups and downs. And if you have a man who still wants you through your darkest hours, which will be through pregnancy, because contrary to most opinions, unless you're your husband, he sees you as beautiful, but there's the fetish group of seeing that as attractive, but it's a common thing to see women as less attractive when they're pregnant. It doesn't mean you don't have a special glow or whatever, but you're going through the difficult task of growing a human being, and that's understandable. But what I'm trying to say here is that for 9 months, you're not going to be yourself. It's going to be a trial, and towards the end, it's going to be rough. And then after you have the baby and your mind is drained, if you have a very small support system, the last thing on your mind is going to be getting a bikini body back. And a lot of women go insane trying to balance out all the different things that they have going on in terms of life and their body and recovering properly and not pushing themselves. And for your husband to still desire you is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can feel like a burden, but you should also feel an immense compliment that you still got it. And your body, when you hit 40, you're not going to be as attractive as you were when you were 19. When you're 50, you're not going to be as attractive as you were when you were 28. And so you have to examine how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the years is going to peel away your beauty, and you're going to need a deeper connection to your husband. And when he's 50, he can still pull a 20-year-old. When you're 50, you're not pulling the same kind of men. You should be happy that your husband, while you have your youth and your looks, still desires you, and you should enjoy each other. This is a special thing. It's a gift. And a lot of your mental health is tied to the bedroom. And there will be days when you don't want it, but if you actually submit and think to yourself more often, like, okay, what do I need in order to feel in the mood? Examine that, okay? What can you do to spice things up, okay? Just really examine what's lacking in you. Do you need an herbal tea? Do you need, maintain haya here, lubricants to help you? Do you need, I don't know, a nice cold shower before and after? Whatever. My point is that if you have a mental block that you haven't recovered from after having children, you have to spiritually work on that and ask Allah to help you. Because if you push your husband away, you're pushing him towards disaster, and also you're hurting your own self. There's a balance. When you really aren't into it, and you don't want it, and your husband respects that, that's a good thing. However, if you make it a habitual thing to constantly push him away, in a time where there's apps that can find people right then and there are services that you can call, someone comes to your house, places you can drive to, street corners you can visit. It is extremely easy now for men to cheat, and with all the free adult content online, you're really torturing him in a way that is quite cruel. And sometimes, if you deny your husband intimacy, you may not realize it, but this can push you into a further depression, which you just keep going more and more and more downhill. And then you won't realize it, and then when you turn around and see that your husband has slowly detached from you, and then when suddenly you want it, but so much damage has been done, this can really hurt you. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, while you're young and pretty, and everything's tight-fitting, okay? Everything in life feels so easy because you're bloomed. You're just this beautiful rose. It's strange to think to yourself that there will come a time when you will be old and gray, and men will not pay any attention to you unless they're into grannies and whatnot. But you're gonna retire your looks, and sure, you can be a classy old lady, no denying that, okay? But what I'm trying to tell you is that the hold you have on your man is very fragile, and eventually, if you keep pushing him away, it's gonna hurt you in the end, because it hurts your stability in your marriage. It loosens the control you have over the bond as well, and it pushes him into the arms of someone else, and pushes him into sin, and draws you down into isolation, okay? Think about it this way, when you're ovulating and you got that strong pang of the desire for intimacy, and the only halal outlet is your husband, and let's say kids are to bed, and then you go to him and he doesn't want it, he just rolls over, and you're just like, let's say you cleaned yourself up, you got everything ready, towels, all that, and he tells you no, and he really means it, and you can't persuade him, and that rejection is icy, so painful. Think about that, and then him doing that over and over. Because remember how it says, how men are told the processes for, like, disciplining, that they can refuse the bed. Now, that works when you actually desire your husband, and he denies you the bed. That's a painful thing when you desire him. He's looking attractive, his body's fit, smelling good, and then you know that your allure can't pull him to your side. That is going to cause some problems. Now, for bad women, you would say cheat, but imagine stoning for adultery was more common. Would you risk death to cheat? No. right? And do you want some of your good deeds erased so that you can't cheat and then repent because you make it seem so easy? No. So, you know your husband is your outlet. And if he denies you, it's going to cause you pain and it's going to cause you mental anguish. Now, that hadith it's almost like a reminder to women, in my mind, that you should be thankful that your husband still wants you. Now, if you recall, there's another hadith, Huri al-Ain, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I struggle sometimes to pronounce it, where they are saying, like, they're basically cursing the wife in a way, and saying, you know, he's just a visitor with you, soon he'll be with us. Now, this on the surface can hurt, but at the same time, if men have more of a drive than women, they're gonna suffer. You know, you have to look at that person that you married and realize, like, wow, they're suffering, I don't want them to suffer, you care about them, and that reciprocation comes, because you both have rights to your own body and also rights to each other in your marriage vows. So, next time you have a feminist Muslimah, oxymoron, but one who's not wearing hijab, lots of makeup, her nails are like dinosaur claws, and she's clapping while she talks, and she's getting mad at the hadith of this, right? Because it's a hadith that can cause a lot of perspectives. But just think about how hurt you'll be once you have children, and every woman knows how she feels looking in the mirror after she had that newborn babe. Okay? She's wondering, like, how can I fix this? You know? It's a very difficult time, especially for first-time moms. You know, you got all the hormones going. It's a difficult time for many. Regardless of how many women hide it and they put a mask on, it's a difficult time. Okay? And if you had complications, may Allah protect us, but some women, it's even slower recovery for them. Tearing, infections, things that delay her drive from coming back. Okay? Some women have diabetes, hypertension, you name it, all kinds of medical complications. Just be thankful, my point is that your husband actually desires you. And really sit down and put your boss babe ego aside. And be ruthlessly honest with yourself. And say, if my husband denied me for a year, denied me, didn't initiate, didn't even bother, even when you put on your special undergarments and everything, and he didn't care, your thoughts would be like, oh, he's cheating. Oh, what's he doing? Is he watching intimacy? Oh, is he gay? Is he blah, 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 blah. Like, your mind would spiral so much that it would cause a constant distraction. And then while you're ovulating, and you're like, I need relief, you're gonna crave a human being, which is your husband. And so, your self-esteem is strong while he's begging. But when he stops begging, well then, now the tables have turned, haven't they? And if you don't want polygamy, but you're going to deny him, you know, what he needs, that's really cruel in a sense. And you can feel more feminine and submissive when you always say yes, you know, because it's not always going to be an hour-long session of craziness. When you have children, you know, things can vary in time frame. Let's use as much haya as possible. So, you don't have to think of it how some of the feminists are like, oh, you know, you're just a slave and you're just so oppressed. They always put a negative spin on it while also selling promo codes for vibrators. Okay, and then telling women to do sex work as empowering. So you have to understand, the feminists use this hadith to separate you from your husband without really giving you any wisdom behind it. Because you can withhold from a man and he can bend to certain actions. But when the tables turn and he starts withholding from you and it starts chipping away and chipping away and chipping away, you will be turned into someone you didn't expect. Let me give you two fictional examples just to illustrate my point. You look at Ishtar in the Epic of Gilgamesh. When Gilgamesh refused her, she went nuts. If you go, you should read that, the Epic of Gilgamesh, because it really highlights this ancient tale, this ancient folk tale, this ancient myth. But If women are honest with themselves, you can understand it from both Gilgamesh's perspective and Ishtar's perspective. Think about when Daenerys Targaryen was refused by Jon Snow, and how she kind of slowly went crazy because he wouldn't do it anymore once he found out they were related, and how she kind of became the Mad Queen. Regardless of how you feel that season ended or yada yada, the point is I'm getting at is when a woman is refused, how at first she's like, okay, whatever, I don't need you, and then the second time, and the third, and the fourth, and then it's like your mind is gonna get to you, and your insecurity is gonna bubble up, and it can cause problems. An occultist woman gold digger is not really gonna tell you that dark side, and she'll just tell you to cheat. But obviously, you shouldn't do that. It's huge risk. STDs, you could get pregnant, you could get caught, the person you cheat with could be crazy, could hurt you. Too many things can happen. You can wreck your home, end up in Jahannam. You just don't want that. Don't do it. Okay? So, imagine, you're loyal to your husband, and then he starts to refuse you like what you did to him. It can be very painful. It can be very painful. And that's why if you combine the lessons about, in the Quran where it says, men can withhold from the bed, with this hadith, you begin to see the wisdom about femininity, being a dutiful wife, and the different, psychological effects of intimacy for men and women. And so, I understand this hadith can upset people, but I'd argue it's really only the hardest for a woman to say yes when you're in the sleep deprivation mode and you don't get to shower as often, I'd argue. Because doing ghusl, you have to nurse the baby's screaming, and there's not anyone there to help you. And you're like, okay, I gotta take a shower, but the baby's crying, and then you get out of the shower, baby says a poopy, and you're like, oh, I just can't, I'm always rushing, always anxious, because no one's there to help, and it can get messy, right? But when you start to sleep more, and the little ones are entertained, things get easier, right? Inshallah. And if your kids are in school, then really you have lots of time, and you shouldn't really refuse. And so my point is that it's understandable when your baby is new that you don't want to do stuff, but be careful about always saying no. Not that you become some strange pornish freak who's like depraved and out of control, but I'm just saying that when your husband approaches you, and if you need to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he's still attracted to you. Because imagine, you're going to be 50 years old, you're going to get 60 years old, and imagine your husband's like, you know what, I'm not attracted to you anymore, and I'm out. And then now you're just alone, and he's with an attractive lady. Your time you had to really bond him to you and have the most fun with your bodies has passed. In your old age, you'll have plenty of time to talk. So when you're young, use your body to really make those memories. Now I'm sure there's people who could give us private counsel about the marriage bed in your senior years, no doubt. Okay? My point is, when you read this hadith, be happy that your husband still wants you. That's the biggest compliment. Like, you still got it. You still got it. So, next time you read this hadith, think about how painful it actually would be for your husband not to want you. And get to know thyself, as they say. Trust me, a lot of women will pretend they wouldn't go nuts. But if their first thing is to cheat, they were never a good wife in the first place. Because if your husband withholds from you, and then you're like, okay, that's my pass to cheat, well, now you've ruined your family, right? You have to have discipline. It's wrong when a man cheats, it'll be wrong when a woman cheats. But it's harder for a man to say no to his wife, it seems to be really easy for a woman to withhold after marriage. And sadly, something that's really common in America, women will be super hormonal and really into intimacy, but then when they get married, all of a sudden the sameness sets in, and then you don't really want to say yes anymore, when in actuality it should be you're chaste until you get married, and then when you get married you have all your fun. And so remember, when you get married, don't forget how important it is for your husband to actually want you. You know, I do see a lot of jokes, you know, women will be like, I'm so tired and I put the kids to bed, and then your husband gives you the look, and how they rather just have Netflix and some popcorn. But it's like, how long is it really, you know? Find a way to embrace it. I just really hope some sisters can look at this hadith in a different way after watching this video. I know it's really easy to get mad, you know, but there's a way you can be enthusiastic, is my point. Because time is coming for women harder than it does for men, and that's just the way it is. And the memories you make now with your husband are going to last into your old age, when your body isn't able to move as much and you don't have the sexual allure. Your romance will change. So enjoy each other. And if you're not feeling very feminine and you're feeling very rebellious and angry, try just saying yes every single time for a month, and then see how you feel more beautiful, more in tune with your feminine side, I'd argue. And see how happy your husband becomes, right? And also, the more you say yes, the more nicer they are when you want something. That's just a kind way of men are. If you're always saying no, and you're always in a grumpy mood, well, who wants to be nice to someone like that? So, my point is, sometimes you can be in a daze taking care of the children. And you can get so depressed and mentally ill that you just start saying no to going out with your friends to the masjid, or you start not returning phone calls, not texting back, saying no to your husband, and you just become more and more isolated. My point is to make sure that you don't forget about him. Don't forget about him. There's a lot of pregnant women posting on forums about how their how their husbands are refusing them intimacy because they're just watching adult content. And the pregnant women actually catch their husbands. You know, lots of sad stuff going on. May Allah protect us, okay? So, I was thinking about this hadith, and I like to just sit and think about stuff quite often. And I just hope you can see that by submitting to his request, you'll feel more feminine, you'll solidify your bond, it'll de-stress you, and try to get over your own mental hatred of yourself. Because sometimes you don't feel good in your own self. But remember, he sees something different than what you are feeling inside. The fact that he still wants you is a sign that you're doing great. When he starts not caring, panic mode, okay? So may Allah protect our marriages. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help people who are struggling. May Allah preserve people from preserve people so they don't get divorced, and may Allah make it easy for us. And if you'd like to join my blog and support my work and see some of the other things I write, you can go to www.subscribestar.com/MilhanArchive. Hope to see you there.